Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris. On today's Tour Catch Up,
Andreeva wins Dubai to crack the top 10.
Rublev rules in Doha as Draper falls short.
And we drop an exclusive on Venus Williams and that Indian Wells wildcard.
Kim, Chris, today is the 24th of February, and we are here to catch up on the week in tennis at Tennis Weekly HQ. It was a magical 7 days for Mirra Andreeva, who took the Dubai title by storm, with Andrey Rublev also rediscovering his mojo in Doha as Novak Djokovic made his return to the court from injury and had a few choice words about Jannik Sinner. Elsewhere, Argentinian Sebastien Baez also defended his title in Brazil at the Rio Open. But guys, it's safe to say the last 24 hours, it has been a whirlwind. It has been a whirlwind for Tennis Weekly. Chris, it's been a whirlwind for you. But it's all kicked off, and it all started with a certain wild card and Venus Williams.
It did. I mean, what a chain of events. We now know she is not playing after all of that.
Good
she's definitely not
detective
going to be there. Yes, detective work. It was rather a strange sort of detective.
Sherlock Chris on the
Sherlock
case
Chris.
in Copenhagen.
Sherlock Chris, and my Watson was Elena, producer Elena. But we found out from Venus Williams herself in a Tennis Weekly exclusive, as I've already mentioned, that she will not be playing. She did not accept the wild card. And this was all in a very small town called Næstved, which is about an hour south of Copenhagen, where there was an evening with Venus Williams, which was in a whole arena. It was absolutely huge. And obviously I was there to be empowered by her book talk, but also I wanted to find out if she was playing Indian Wells. And we found out that she wasn't. And since then, we broke the story. We've been picked up in coverage, globally. It's been quite something. BBC, ESPN, The Athletic. CNN, yes, all of these different places, and all because of a trip that we made on a Sunday, just for a day out, really, to go and see Venus Williams talk about her fantastic career. But we must play the clip so you can understand what has gone on, or try and understand what's gone on, because it's not absolutely clear, but it is clear that she is not playing.
And now with the wild card coming up.
Actually, I'm not. That wasn't true. That wasn't true.
Really? Oh,
I found the announcement super amusing because I don't know. People seem to be happy, so I was like, maybe I'll just go with it. I'm actually not going. I'm gonna be like in overseas. I'm not gonna be here, so I'll be watching.
You've heard it here. Thank you.
I just had a player text me today too. Like, can we play doubles? I'm not playing. I found out about the wild card when you guys did. Just saying. So okay. And I love Indian Wells. I would love to be there. And if I could have accepted it, I would have been like, yes, but I already made commitments.
Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it, what's happened? But I think the most amusing bit for me was shortly after we broke this news on social media, Tommy Haas, the tournament director, released a statement from the official, account of the BNP Paribas Open to address the fact that Venus is not accepting the wildcard this year. So, he obviously got wind of our breaking news. So, fantastic work there, Chris, going to the depths of deepest Denmark to bring us this news.
There's just so much to unpack. There's so many different ways and angles to look at it. But what we understand, a wild card, a player has to apply for a wild card in the first place.
They do. That's how it works. So someone would have to have filled in the form saying that Venus was actually looking for a wild card. Even if you get granted a wild card, it doesn't mean that you'll accept it. But if you are posting about it, you're on the website, it's been announced, you would expect that player to play, or there to be communication between the two parties. So, it's a very odd one, because you wouldn't necessarily hand a wild card to Venus Williams, who hasn't played tennis for a year, if she did not express interest, just hoping maybe she would come back. Yeah. Otherwise, Serena might have a wild card as well.
Yeah, you just sent out loads of wild cards to players in the hope that they'd be like, oh yeah, fancy that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Nadal also has a wild card. No. But that's why it's so strange, because it was very serious in its approach, and she kind of makes light of it. But I do think potentially there was interest there. She did say she has been training. She did hit balls doubles yesterday in Copenhagen. So that's something that shows that maybe there is a comeback on the horizon. So it's not completely out of the blue. But my favorite part of the story was that Tommy Haas did see our Instagram story. I did tag him because I thought maybe someone should let him know. So I'm thinking maybe we were the people who informed him and it didn't come from Venus, which makes you think, why didn't she tell them? But what I would say is also quite exciting and something we can sort of debate. Who was the player that you think texted Venus and said, are you up for some doubles?
I was just thinking that.
Coco? They played
yeah,
together
that would be a
before.
nice
that would have been
moment.
that would be
Ons,
great.
complete the set.
I hope it was Coco.
Could have been Harriet Dart. She's played doubles with her before. Unlikely.
Well, maybe we'll never know, or maybe it will come out in the press conferences when we actually get to Indian Wells.
There's more to this story. There's more to this story.
I hope that people haven't, bought loads of tickets thinking, "Oh, Venus is there," only to be disappointed.
Well, they would be disappointed, wouldn't they? And that's that's the thing.
Was there anything else juicy that she mentioned when you went to see her, Chris? Reporting back?
Well, she obviously talked Serena, and something very interesting was how quickly the Super Bowl offer came to Serena. Venus didn't really have much idea about it. And even when she attended the rehearsals, she didn't know that Serena would actually be performing at the Super Bowl. She was kind of confused when she went to a warehouse to visit Serena while she was working. She's like, we don't often talk work. And little did she know Serena was actually performing in a couple of days at the Super Bowl. So she did say on that topic that she's actually the better dancer. So Serena maybe did a great job. She said, if you're looking for someone to sort of dance with more spontaneously, she is the better dancer, but maybe not the best when it comes to karaoke. So
the challenge has been thrown down, it sounds like, to we need a Crip Walk dance-off between the Williams sisters.
She didn't dance on stage. Yeah, she didn't dance on stage. It was very much about her book talk, so I feel like maybe that wouldn't necessarily quite have been the move. But either way, I mean, it was such an inspiring talk to go to. She is incredible in terms of her career, in terms of the Venus and Serena story, and they did talk a lot in detail about that and her attitude towards things. So I think, again, either way, I'm hoping that she didn't decide not to play because of some of the backlash around awarding her a wild card. I hope it was because she's actually planning a comeback at another time, at another tournament, and maybe it'll be more along the lines of a farewell or a proper send-off. Not trying to send her to retirement, but I also don't want her to kind of have to put up with everyone saying she doesn't deserve a wild card for a wild card that she actually was never going to accept.
Yeah, well, thanks, Chris, for reporting back, and reminder to everyone to follow us on our social media because
who knows
dropping
what you'll
those
see.
stories first.
We get the hot scoop.
Or just read the BBC.
Scoops.
You might come across the name.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, Chris. And let's catch up now on the WTA events that have happened this week. We've had the WTA 1000 out in Dubai, where, Mirra Andreeva has, I guess you could say, come of age. She's got the biggest title of her very young career, just 17 years of age, beating Clara Tolson, another youngster, in the final out in Dubai in straight sets to become the youngest 1000 event finalist and champion. She's almost 18, but still 17 technically, and 17 years and 299 days old. We've been watching her for a while. She's been a rapidly kind of rising up the rankings, but capturing her second title, but the biggest one of her career so far, with some outstanding tennis in Dubai and cinching the title.
I love the fact that because she's still 17 years of age, she can't even be given like a novelty-sized bottle of champagne at the ceremony because she's what does she get instead? Is it just like a big can of soft drink or orange juice?
Maybe like a 7-Up or something like that, a lilt.
Maybe just a water.
Yeah, probably a
Premium water.
But, I mean, it was quite fun because she did thank herself at the ceremony. She said, to thank me for all the hard work I've done, which was quite unusual. So she definitely is a bit of a character. So I think that was super fun. But also, when you said, Kim, she's 17 and 299 days, that does make me feel better because I feel like she's been 17 for quite a while. She's been 17 for almost as long as you can be 17. So, I mean, it's great that she's done this at such a young age. But from the tennis that she was playing, I mean, it was proper, defensive, scrappiness. We saw great slices, great movement, great passing shots. I mean, it was a highlight reel all week. handling the power of some of the big hitters that she faced and some of the top opponents. I mean, she took out Rybakina, she took out Swiatek, in really going to Swiatek in emphatic style. So I was just surprised that she's gone up a level so quickly, having maybe not shown the form at the start of the year and having had some time off last year, because, I mean, the level that she showed was very, very mature for a player of her age, but also a level that we haven't seen from her yet.
Yeah, one bagel and four breadsticks, I think, across the week. So pretty dominant. And, it's normally Swiatek delivering bakery items, but really, really captivating stuff. And playing with maturity kind of beyond her years. But, we have seen it before with especially in the WTA, youngsters coming through. She is now in the top 10 as a result of this performance. And she's become only the third player since the year 2000, age 17, to get to that in the top 10. The other two, anyone want to guess what other 17-year-olds broke the top 10?
Well, it's got to be Sharapova, because she won
Sharapova,
Wimbledon.
correct, in 2004. She was 17 and 77 days. Any other guesses on the other player who did it in 2006, aged 17?
2006.
No idea.
I'm coming up short here.
I'm expecting Chris to get this one. No?
Ooh, the only person I can think of would be, is it Nicole Vidasova? Could we
It
say?
is. Yes, 17 years and 106
Wow.
days she broke the top 10. And I mean, her career was quite short-lived, really, wasn't it, Vidasova? But well, that's for another day. But what was it so much about Andreeva this week that really, struck you? Especially, matches against Swiatek. What was it that she did so well that kind of, put Swiatek on the back foot there?
I think that, I think over the off season, she's definitely worked on her body. I think she's been able to add a bit more bulk and muscle, and I think it helped generate the power, but also be able to, I think, handle the power that comes back her with that Rybakina result. I also think mentally she's just become a bit tougher in terms of those key moments. It feels like she's taking more of those chances now. That tie break in the final against Rybakina as well, when she dropped that second set. It felt like she had a really positive attitude, and she was able to live with these big hitters when a lot of players haven't been able to. So those were kind of a couple of things that I was very impressed with. And I know, Chris, you talked about some of her shot making across the week. I would also add the level of depth that she's able to hit consistently. It just felt like she was pinning a lot of her players back, to the back of the court, not giving them that opportunity to, get on the front foot. And I thought, to me, that was also, a very kind of key strength to hers that ultimately helped her become champion.
Definitely more aggressive, I think, than I've seen her. And against Iga, I mean, Iga won 51% of first serve points and 50% of second serves, and she actually had a 77% first serve rate. So she actually hit a lot of first serves in, but it was pretty much dismantled by Andreeva on the day. So I think that's obviously very impressive that she had a game plan and she executed it so well. And I also think that there's a big challenge in, beating a top player like she showed this week, but also beating players when you are the favourite. And against Clara Towson in the final, it's not always easy to win when people think you should win, having been the underdog all week. And especially when you're so young, that's not necessarily the expectation that you would have going into that final. So again, she showed you can beat anybody, no matter what their ranking is or what the expectations are going into that match. And that is refreshing from someone so young.
Clara Towson, she's been around a few more years than Andreeva. She's obviously from Denmark, so I wonder how the vibe is in Denmark after her good performance last week. But she had some cracking wins herself over Karolina Muchova, Noskova, Svitolina, Sabalenka. So she's had a fantastic week herself, and players like Sabalenka just not at the races at the moment, but Towson making the most of it and going all the way to the final. How confident are we that she could keep up this form going into, the rest of the season? Or do we think it's a bit of a flash in the pan like we've seen from her in the past?
Well, I would say both players have had not just standout weeks, they've had standout seasons so far, I think. Towson and Andreeva, I think they've only lost, 3 or 4 matches this season. And I certainly think Towson's going to continue rising up the rankings. I think they're both high on confidence. And if there's anything I think the Middle Eastern swing has shown, I think we were all going into it expecting it to be a big tussle between Sabalenka and Swiatek. And actually, it's sort of been a coming of age story for Andreeva, but also for, I guess, Anna Samova, who's been on the tour a while, picked up her biggest title. So it shows that there's actually even more depth than I think we thought there was to begin with.
Yeah, Sabalenka hasn't made a quarterfinal from this swing. She's only won one match. Swiatek made a semi, made a quarter, but was kind of, dismantled in those matches against Andreeva and Ostapenko the week before. Coco Gauff, she hasn't won a match, hasn't even won a set in this swing. She lost to Kessler this week. I just, we were talking about a bit of a big three, perhaps, with the WTA, I think about a year ago. But what's happened with that?
I got told off for bringing up the idea of a big three by Chris.
Well, probably justifiably so, because there is no big three.
There is no big three anymore.
The last few weeks, yeah.
I mean, too soon.
Is the WTA just so wide?
It's a Big 10 now, yeah.
It's a Big 10, a Big 20. The numbers are going to get bigger and bigger. But I mean, in terms of these results, it is very surprising. Obviously for Sabalenka, when she has won in Australia, she has gone out quite early in the Middle East. I think when you have a big win, quite often it's hard to necessarily get that focus back. You kind of recharge for the next slam. They are looking to win big tournaments, these three. But it's a bit different this time. She said that she thought that Clara was more hungry for that win. And maybe she was kind of, very disappointed, obviously, coming out of that final loss. I think she thought she was going to do the three-peat. And I think maybe some of that motivation might have slightly sort of wavered. I'm not saying she's lost it at all. She's a great competitor. She will get it back. But it didn't necessarily feel like it was the Sabalenka, sort of the tiger, the warrior that she talks about so much when she's on her interviews afterwards and what she shows us when she's playing her tennis. So that's probably an explanation there. I feel like the thing that's confusing me most is kind of the Coco Gauff and the Swiatek side of things, because, Swiatek really does not often lose in straight sets that easily. And the opponent she's lost to, you could say Ostapenko is her bogey woman. And Draper is not someone I think she would expect to lose to. She was quite visibly annoyed by that. And Wim Fissette was obviously kind of he went to approach her and she wouldn't even sort of look at him. So maybe there was a problem sort of in coaching corner. But with Coco Gauff, I was going to say, Joel, can you offer me an explanation?
I don't know. I would say I'm as surprised as you are in terms of tennis, because she's just a lot better than the performances that she showed. I know Kessler's had a bit of a good form of late, but
it's not a Coco Gauff result normally, is it?
Really, no. She's normally one to kind of get deep into a tournament and then probably go out to someone maybe like a Swiatek who's seeded above her. But not very Coco-esque like.
Are we saying maybe, it's the end, Joel, to this big three of yours then? Can we finally say
at the moment, it's on hold. It's on hold.
Okay.
There's no big three, but we do have three Americans in the top five at the moment with Gauff, Pegula and Madison Keys. So that's the first time that's happened since 2003, when it was Serena, Lindsay Davenport and Jennifer Capriati. So American tennis is cracking. Navarro, I think, is still top 10 as well. So, quite dominant there for the US ladies, although they didn't, particularly do much last week. But just a note on that. And one thing we must talk about before we kind of move on is that Emma Raducanu had a bit of a nasty incident in her match against Karolina Muchova. There was a moment where she was sort of visibly upset and they had to sort of pause the match because a man was spotted in the crowd who she recognized. It's a man that was sort of following her around, getting quite close, had been following her from tournament to tournament, bit of a stalker basically. And this person was ejected from the match, from the court, from the stadium, and has been banned from all WTA events pending a threat assessment. There has been an incident with Emma a few years ago, I think, where she did have someone who was given a restraining order back in the UK. So obviously a bit of a history with this, and something she's very obviously rightfully sensitive to. It's obviously very, very unpleasant. But yeah, what did you make of this? Because it's really brought it to attention, I think, having this sort of so prominent in this match in the week just gone. It's a very nasty situation.
Yeah, very nasty. And you have to think she rallied herself so well. She did obviously go down. I think it was 4-love in that opening set, and then she actually pushed it to a tiebreak. So credit to Emma. She's a very, very mature woman with a great head on her shoulders, and she was able to still compete, which a lot of people would not have done in that situation. And not saying that's one way is better than the other, but still it showed a real level of resilience from her. And I mean, that's probably what comes with having the level of status that she has, unfortunately. This is not something that is just an Emma Raducanu issue. It is a problem in the sport. Danielle Collins has spoken about it. Coco Gauff has also said that people turn up at her at airports and she's not told anyone she's going to be landing there. So I think it is very unpleasant this happened. You would hope that security is upped at WTA events. We have seen obviously very bad incidents in the past, especially at the French Open with Monica Seles. We do want to avoid these situations happening because someone getting to get that close, it does make you think, actually, these people are very much or could be a threat, and you don't know they're not going to be a threat. You don't know how dangerous they could be. So very happy that Emma is okay. And she did say that she was shaken up by it, but she is doing fine now. And hopefully this won't happen to her again.
Yeah, the numbers are incredible, really. So last year, the WTA, they had launched something called a threat matrix, which is using AI to kind of look at abuse online at players. And I think last year, this new system, there were 12,000 abusive messages on social media platforms, and 15 accounts were reported to the authorities. It's really, awful numbers. And I think they knuckled it down to about 48% of the abuse coming from angry gamblers. So obviously people placing bets, the players losing and then them taking it out on them. It's just, this. It's just
sad because it feels like it happens anytime. They're not safe anywhere. It's happening on a tennis court
online,
during
offline,
a match. It's happening, offline as well. I think we've seen too many cases of players on social media, highlighting, outing abusive messages they get after losing, and it shows. I think there's so much more that can be done by the authorities to kind of help protect their players. And I think that's particularly important in a game like tennis, where we've just spoken about like Mirra Andreeva, who has arrived on the scene, top 10 in the world, only 17 years old. It's a sport that does enable those amazing stories to happen, but as I say, there's almost that extra level of vulnerability and security that's needed there, because you're dealing with people and individuals who at the end of the day are still teenagers, they're still kids.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? The fame, and then this is the kind of one of the negatives of fame, which it does sound at least like the WTA are trying to limit the impact with this sort of scheme, but it's and obviously they took swift action when Raducanu spoke about it in her match and stopped to get that sorted. But it obviously we want to target the root cause of it happening in the first place, and that's a much bigger issue, isn't it? And not one that we can really delve or do justice in sort of our catch up. But it's I'm glad that Emma took the action and she's okay now. On that note to end. And I mean, let's have a look now at the ATP events from last week, because we had the ATP 500 out in Qatar, where Andrey Rublev was the champion. He's won this event for the second time. And unfortunately for British fans, he did break Jack Draper's hopes in that final. 3 sets it was, Rublev coming through 6-1 in the third set. But Jack Draper, having a great run to the final, getting there. But what did you make of Rublev's week? Because he's now back, I think, in the top 10 again. And he's had a few results that have been a bit so-so, but obviously having a good week out in Doha and getting that win, battling through some matches, but kind of doing what we
Rublev things
associate with Rublev.
Rublev's back, winning 500.
It's nice,
almost
isn't
like
it?
Tennis is the order of tennis has been restored on the ATP side of things. I mean, that was his first 500 win since 2022, and it is really pleasing to see, actually, because he has been going through a really kind of tough period. I mean, I was looking at some of his stats last season. I think he lost 28 matches in total last season, which is the most he's lost on the tour in one calendar year. And he lost to Fonseca in the first round at the Australian Open. So, that was sort of a moment I was like wondering, can it get worse than this, or where does it go from here? So it's good to see, I think, Rublev post Australian Open kind of bouncing back, having that confidence and just playing with a bit of fun. I think, he was able to kind of keep a lid on things in that final. And even though he did drop that second set, he didn't sort of let that emotion overcome
Explosion
him.
didn't happen, did it?
No, it didn't. And I think he was helped a little bit by Jack Draper. He's just been coming back from injury. And I think his body sort of, wasn't willing to go another set in that final. But yeah, Rublev, I feel like he's back to his old self.
He talked about the mentality.
Calmer Rublev.
He talked about the mentality as well. So maybe not back to his old self, but back to his old ways, but maybe to an elevated self, because he said he felt very good mentally. The frustration didn't get to him. He was able to restart and kind of play at the same intensity again. And I think this is interesting because he's kind of talked about that. I talked about that with you, Kim, at the end of last year when you spoke to him about trying to be more calm. He's meditating. So maybe this is actually like a new path for him. And this will be like a building block to even more successful things.
There's hope for us all. If Rublev can get calm, we all can. And Jack Draper, fantastic week for him. Like you said, Joel, coming back from injury.
Not far off the top 10.
Not far off the top 10. He's up to 12 now, which is brilliant.
It's great. That snuck up on me. I did not realise how close he was to the top 10.
He's been winning, Joel.
I know.
And he had a good win over Lehechka, who had taken out Alcaraz. So, some great wins. Also against Berrettini, who took out Djokovic, which we'll get onto in a moment. But what do you think in that final, for example? I know Draper a bit tired, kind of coming back off injury. But what's the one thing you would say to Draper that he could improve if he's up against Rublev, in a sort of carbon copy of the final next time round?
I sort of felt, kind of watching some of the match and some of the highlights, that Rublev, we know he's ultra aggressive, ultra attacking. And it felt like Draper at moments, he was just sort of biding his time to kind of switch the rally from, Alcaraz from Rublev offense to Draper offense. And I just sort of wonder whether maybe earlier in the point or earlier in the rally, actually he can be on the front foot to begin with, because I think too many times it felt like Rublev, was the aggressor, and Draper was sort of trying to find his moments, whether he just needs to be a little bit more offensive to begin with. Because I do think his defense was very solid all week, but I wonder whether he needs to be able to play on the front foot a little bit more.
The stats agree, Joel, actually, because Rublev was very successful behind his serve, winning 79% of first serve points and over 65% of second serve points. So it does look like maybe Jack wasn't stepping up against that serve, and maybe that did mean that the points were dragging out a bit longer, and really he needed to get it done a bit quicker if he was feeling the effects of being a bit tired. So maybe that's something we'll see from him. But either way, I mean, Jack just keeps getting better and better and better, which is great to see, because we lost Murray, we gained a Draper.
Yeah, absolutely. And another player coming back from injury was Novak Djokovic, who lost his opener to Berrettini 7-6, 6-2, straight sets. I mean, that is the first time in a long time, I think, since 2009 that Djokovic is out in the first round on the ATP tour. Were you surprised by this result, or can you just put it down to he's coming back from injury? He's obviously going to be a bit rusty. Joel?
I definitely think there's a theme growing in terms of kind of big servers. Berrettini, big serve, Opelka, big serve, Popperin as well. And he's not really had the answers to it. I get that, he's coming back from injury and he's maybe been off for a few weeks, but it certainly maybe suggests to me that he's not got maybe some of the powers of old, because I feel like, a few years ago, we talk about Djokovic and his return game and it being, one of the best ever. But it seems at the moment that he's really struggling and finding it hard to break down these kind of big serving opponents. And with Berrettini, it was quite a similar story really to, some of his other defeats that he's had this season. I'm sure, he will get better, but at the same time, going out in the first round, that probably was not part of the script.
Yeah. And I think, Alcaraz as well, falling early. It's almost like, obviously Sinner's banned. Alcaraz doesn't seem to be, I know he won the title last week, but he wasn't able to back that up and fell to Lehechka. It seems like similar to the WTA, there's chances here for other players to be getting these titles now.
Yeah, it does make me think, because we're going to come on to the Rio Open in a second, but Zverev's not really had a great time, in the Golden Swing, and it does make me feel like are these players in the chasing pack feeling the pressure a little bit from this situation where there is no world number one? There's a big opportunity for me here, but yeah, Alcaraz is not taking it, Zverev's not taking it, and it just seems to be, like the chasing pattern. They're not in form at the moment.
Well, Alcaraz
Yeah,
did win Rotterdam. Just a little caveat. That is a title that he
True,
did win.
true.
So we will give him that because it's his first indoor title. But maybe the way he went out, and those last four games against Lehechka, they kind of just went away. So I think that's probably more kind of testament to what you were saying, Joel. But I mean, on the Rio Open, I mean, it wasn't golden for Zverev at all, was it? I mean,
he lost to Francisco,
But he got the
Comisano.
paycheck. That's what matters.
he did get
Yeah.
the paycheck, yes. But he wants
Lost
the
to
ranking, surely,
Comisano.
yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
Kim.
No, lost to Comisano in the quarterfinals, and I did have to sort of do a double take when I saw that result because I thought, who? But yeah,
That's the
like you
golden
said,
swing for
he'll
you.
He'll get
Kim,
the payoff.
That's the golden swing. That's what
I
happens.
know.
That's part of the
But
fun.
We do all know the winner, Sebastien Baez. He defended his title, beating Alexandre Muller in the final quite comfortably. And he's now, he's won 7 ATP titles, fourth title in South America. And he loves the golden swing, doesn't he, Baez? He's, won this title twice in a row now, picking up those golden swings. And I mean, it was an easy draw, but he, seemed to come through fairly comfortably, a couple of three setters, but no one really
Didn't play a seed.
challenging him.
Didn't play a
very
seed. Picked up
comfortable week.
500 points. I mean, comparing that to Rublev,
Yes.
there is a big disparity there. It does make me think. I mean, I watched the Rio Open. It's a lovely tennis court, and it looks like a great atmosphere. Why do you not think it? Why do you think it struggles to, arguably justify its 500 billing? Because it's apart from Zverev, it's not much else really, is there?
Well, it's almost like they don't have the same budget as the Middle East. I mean, surely it can't be that, but I would say it's definitely that. But in terms of the way that it works, normally they sort of club together in terms of paying for a top 5 ranked player to come down. I think they were unlucky this time that maybe there weren't a few more players that played both events. Holger Rune did say he was not feeling well when he lost in Argentina, and then he pulled out of the Rio Open, but in true Holger Rune fashion was back on a tennis court in Acapulco the next day. So not sure we can read too much into that one. And then Musetti pulled out as well. So there were more names who were going to be here. So this was an unfortunate year, I would say. But I mean, it's giving Hamburg, that's 500 that tends to happen after the French Open, which is now before the French Open. So there are some of these events that happen. It is a ranking point opportunity, but I don't think it's a financial opportunity for a lot of players.
And I just want to say, before we go to a quick break, the doubles here. I know last week we were speaking about, doubles is dying. The US Open, it's changed it because, they need to make it better. But the doubles here was alive and thriving. 5,000 people, close to midnight, sell out to watch Matos and Melo become the first ever Brazilian team to win the Rio Open. They defeated one of your favourites, Kim Munar and Martinez.
Jaime Munar.
in straight sets. But yeah, it was just a buzz and an atmosphere. And I love this quote from Marcelo Melo. I've been playing doubles for 18 years, won Grand Slams, was world number 1, but there is nothing like this feeling. It just shows how much doubles on the tour means to a lot of people.
Just got goosebumps for that quote. That's so nice, isn't it? Just the thought of that, just thinking that this is their Grand Slam, and being able to win that in front of your home crowd. But I mean, Fonseca was there cheering them on as well up until midnight, and he's only 18. Yeah, I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, amazing scenes late at night to round off the tournament. And yeah, definitely, I think the highlight from Rio. No offense to Baez, but great to have the Brazilians winning at their home event. And we're going to take a quick break now, but do join us in the second half, where we'll be discussing what Novak Djokovic thought of Jannik Sinner's ban, Elena Rybakina's response to her coach's preliminary suspension, and we'll be looking ahead to this week's action, including Dubai, Acapulco, and Austin. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast. And it's time, as always, to kick off the second half with another game. And I believe we've got a mysterious player, which we haven't had in a while.
We have
So-
not
Been a
had.
while.
When
Joel,
was the
you're
last time we
spoiling
had
us.
mysterious player?
God, it must have been me and
Last
Kim
year?
doing a solo
Long time
episode
ago.
last year. Yeah.
Long time ago. But yes, mysterious player is here, and I'm actually we're gonna make this a collaborative one. You guys are gonna be one team, one dream, against a set
Against
of,
you. We're trying to beat
against-
you, Joel.
yes,
Right?
against a set of clues that I have that describes a player on the ATP or WTA Tour, past or present.
Oh,
You don't
okay.
know.
Is that a clue?
Yeah, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe I'm just freewheeling it.
Okay.
But right,
Making the
let's-
clues up. How many clues do we have? How does this
So,
work?
Number of clues we have are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 7 clues. I've got
We
7
better
clues
get it
this
by
week.
7, Kim.
Yeah,
That would
I
be
hope
not
so.
good.
I hope so. Okay, right. We're going to start with clue 1 for you both and our listeners, and it's this. I was born on the April 16th, 1996.
Oh, so they would be turning 29 this year.
Interesting. Turning 29. Past or present? Well, this could actually be sneaky, couldn't it?
Assuming they would still be playing,
Well, will they still be playing?
unless they took early retirement.
Mm.
Any names you would
Oh.
like to give me?
Well, we should go for somebody. Wait.
Come on,
Svitolina,
give me a
she's
name.
older than that, surely.
Oh, that could be quite a good guess, but I think she's older
Madison
than that.
Keys? No.
I'm
Give
going to
me
go
let's
Ash
give us
Barty.
one
Let's go
name.
Ash Barty.
Okay, yeah.
Past or present? I'll go Ash.
That's incorrect.
Oh.
Right.
Joel
Let's
might have
move
picked a
on
man. I
to
feel
the
Oh,
like Joel
second
might.
we're playing
clue.
together. Sorry, we need to agree an answer, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I agreed with Barty.
Okay, I just plowed through that one. Yeah.
Oh, second clue. I turned pro in December 2012.
Okay. Turned pro at the age of 16.
Ah, good
Or-
maths.
Yeah, 16 and a half.
29 turned pro 16.
I mean, most players
Mm.
probably turn pro around then, in fairness.
What about
Medvedev? No, he's not as old as that, is he?
what about Paolini? I don't know why I'm on the WTA vibes.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
Paolini?
Madison could be Madison Keys. I don't know, one of those two. Kim, you decide. Why am I going for the women only?
Let's
It's good-
say Keys, because
Yeah.
Joel might have
Keys.
picked someone recent. You know, he's
Yes.
obviously been in the news, done great things.
Incorrect. It's not
Oh.
Madison.
These are hard,
Keys.
Joel. Normally we
Okay.
find out what discipline they're in.
Next clue.
Well, they're in tennis, I would assume.
Oh yeah,
My
doubles.
career high WTA singles ranking is
Mm.
46 in the world.
Oh, good.
Singles ranking, so they're probably a doubles specialist.
46.
It's not. Oh, is it Taylor Townsend?
Oh,
Maybe.
that could be a good guess. Let's go for that.
Taylor Townsend?
That's what we're going with.
That is a correct answer. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yes.
Yes.
Kim, where did that come from?
That was quite early on, really. Well, I just thought, okay, they're obviously going to be higher up in doubles, and I know that she won a tournament with Siniakova last week.
So you're
this week
thinking
just
how
gone.
Joel's brain works, right?
I'm thinking how has Joel's brain worked, and she
Well-
would be around that same age, wouldn't she?
She is,
So-
yeah. Apparently, definitely
made
she
a-
is.
Well,
Well,
educated
you,
guess.
Kim,
Kim.
you were completely right because I was trying to lead you astray with singles ranking because was a doubles player. But my other clues were going to be my best Grand Slam singles result, round 4, the US Open in 2019. I have reached the final of every Grand Slam doubles event in the ladies doubles. I am a 2-time Grand Slam ladies doubles winner, and the
My name is
reason
Taylor Townsend.
the reason I brought it
I
up
just won Dubai.
Yeah.
this week, I reached world number 2 in doubles for the very first time. So yes, very well done.
Kim,
Thanks, Joel.
absolutely smashed it.
Yes. Very pleased about that. Listeners, let us know how you got on. Did you find it difficult, easy?
Did you get it on the
Let us
date of
know.
birth? It's happened before.
That might be a
It
record.
has happened before. Well, no, I think Chris got like Joe Conter based on her birthday or something, which was
That
Forgotten
does not
episodes.
surprise me.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was a bit sad.
Let's dip into the mailbag though, because we do have a comment that we got on YouTube. So thanks very much. I think mysterious person who left us a YouTube comment, but hello, Tennis Weekly. They have said you've been extensively covering the Jannik Sinner doping ban and critical of the institutions involved, but you've only touched very lightly on the Rybakina situation with her coach. It seems like the WTA has done some good here, stepping up to act in the player interest by intervening and banning her coach, when in the past, the tour and those on the tour have looked the other way. For example, in the case of Elena Dokic. Do you agree that the WTA deserve a pat on the back for their efforts? What is your view, and why haven't you covered it more? So, a quite in-depth question on the Rybakina coach situation, which we did report on last week with her coach having been banned from the tour. I mean, I'll come to you first, Chris, perhaps. We haven't covered it too much, have we? Because not much was known. It's a very sensitive issue, and we can't really go into the ins and outs when we don't have all the ins and outs ourselves. There has been a really more in-depth article at The Athletic recently, who have made a lot of the detail public. So that is behind a paywall, but if any of our listeners and viewers have access to that, it's well worth a read. But yeah, do you want to just delve into what we've learned in the last week or so about the ban for her coach Vukov?
Yeah, and that's the main reason why we haven't talked about it more, is also because it was an ongoing investigation. So there was an initial suspension, and these files have not been made public by the WTA. Anything we do know is from people who have seen them and are then reporting on it. And now there is obviously the official ban, and so the players have been reacting to it. And so it feels actually like now is a very good time for us to talk about it, and then to hopefully move on from it and allow Rybakina to move on from it. But I mean, in terms of what has been going on and what has been kind of spoken about, it very much comes from a place that the WTA were trying to protect Rybakina, but Rybakina has always maintained that she did not ask for this. And so this is something where she says she's never made any complaints or any of these things. I've always said that he never mistreated me. So this also makes it something that we haven't necessarily thrown our oar into, because you have the WTA saying something's not right here and the player saying, I'm fine. I would like to rehire him as my coach. So you know there's more to the story when there are two sides that are completely conflicting. In terms of what we do know that he was banned now for engaging in abusive authority and abusive conduct towards the WTA player, including compromising or attempting to compromise the psychological, physical, or emotional well-being of the player, engaging in physical and verbal abuse of the player, and exploiting your relationship with the player for further personal and / or business interests at the expense of the best interest of the player. So we should say that Vukov denies all of these accusations that have been made against him. But this is also why it's a very hard thing to cover, because this is very much an issue that is going on for Rybakina right now and has been going on for a considerable period of time, based on what we've heard and what we heard from the rumour mill around this. So, I mean, from our perspective, talking about it, I think the WTA have stepped in. I think previously, I mean, we saw in the Dokic documentary that came out that there wasn't that support there for her. A lot of people looked the other way. So I think this is a big step forward. And we did talk about Rybakina maybe not getting the WTA security support that Raducanu, that she should have had. So this is one way that maybe the WTA have stepped up and are protecting their players a bit more. But I do think that when it comes to this, I think you have to be sensitive and careful about how we talk about it, because a lot of this stuff is actually a personal issue for her and private matters, because the nature of her relationship with her coach is under question as well, whether that is romantic or not. There's lots of things that are in that report that probably she wouldn't want made public, and she's still playing on the tour and playing very well. So it's very impressive that she's still able to be a top tier athlete despite everything she's gone through, and all of the things that sort of relate to the fact that maybe Rybakina wasn't so mysteriously ill. There were other things at work. And I think that probably does explain a lot, doesn't it, Joel, in terms of the absence she's had from the tour at times and some of the sick reasons we were getting for her pulling out of tournaments.
Yeah, it's definitely been something that has been kind of ongoing and sort of explains some of the things that we've heard with regards to Rybakina. And as you said, I think it's interesting in terms of that kind of safeguarding and support, that, you know, the WTA do have an active role, and they have stepped in here. It sounds like Elena Rybakina doesn't necessarily agree with the decision that the WTA have, but also at the same time, there are other players like Coco Gauff and Iga Swiatek who actually have, you know, a different point of view, in terms of actually, as I say, kind of WTA actually having an active role and actually making a decision. So again, it is very complex, and I always come back to this feeling of like, this is her team. You know, this is almost like behind closed doors. This is what, you know, helps breed champions, but it is very subjective. I think it's probably very kind of maybe different, kind of potentially kind of culturally as well. And it makes these situations really hard to, I guess, assess and have like a universal kind of view on it that everyone is going to agree on. But I think it's good, as you said, that the WTA have kind of done something about it, and it just shows that there's lots of different angles to kind of safeguarding and support, and it is quite a, you know, finicky subject because of the very nature of the debates and conversations that are happening.
I don't think, just to point out, I don't think you're saying obviously that this is a relationship like this is what breeds champions. I think you mean that some people are willing to turn a blind eye if they get the results that they're looking for.
In terms of like the going, you know, taking it to the extreme to kind of
to get the best out of their game or whatever it might be. And I think that's maybe that's why she doesn't say that she has an issue with it, but I think there is a lot of people who've talked about maybe she's become more isolated on the tour. It hasn't necessarily helped in some ways in that respect. So I think it is a case where the more that people talk about it, it doesn't necessarily create a situation for the player. And that's probably why I think from our perspective, we haven't talked about it significantly, because when we're talking about the Sinner case, for example, we're not being critical of Jannik Sinner specifically. We're being critical of the system and the processes and the failings of some of the anti-doping authorities as we see it. Whereas this one is very much a personal relationship that's under the microscope, and a situation that is very much live, and their personal safety is potentially at risk, as the WTA have said. So, I mean, Kim, in kind of wrapping this one up, in terms of like what we have seen here and kind of what will happen next, what would your take be?
Yeah, I think it's just such a sensitive issue, isn't it? And, you know, clearly she's, without wanting to speak for Rybakina, because only she knows what it's like to be on the receiving end of all of the alleged abuse, you know, both mental, physical, verbal, etc. Doesn't sound pleasant, what's been going on. And it does definitely, I think, provide that explanation of all the sort of mysterious illnesses and the inconsistency that we've seen over the last year from her. I think Vukov, he has appealed it. He's appealing the ban. You know, obviously Rybakina has come out to say that she, you know, she didn't complain herself. She wasn't the one that raised anything to the WTA, but I think they've done the right thing by stepping in, and because they do have a duty of care. And if there's enough red flags, and, you know, you can't ignore them. I think they've learned their lesson from those previous cases. And I think it's always best to err on the side of caution in these scenarios where obviously someone's individual safety and the safety of others, you know, he might go on to coach other players. And I'm sure other players will, you know, with all of this now being in the news and very public, you know, is he going to have a career after this? You know, who would rightfully employ him, knowing all of this that's gone down?
It's a very difficult dynamic, isn't it? I think that's also what they talk about as like a final point on this, is that, you know, the nature of this relationship is that almost, and this is part of the TV show that we spoke to the writer, the creator of, where it was about the fact that these relationships actually, in order to stay as the coach, you actually do have to almost manipulate the person you're coaching, because they might fire you. So I think it is the case that it does expose the nature of what some behaviors people might be seeing on the tour, and actually recognize that isn't good. So hopefully there will be a positive that comes out of it. And I just think that, you know, Rybakina may not be in a good spot at all, but she still is getting some decent results on the tour. She's playing some great tennis. And, you know, we talked about the big three. Well, Rybakina's actually put in results that are as good as Swiatek in this period, despite the fact she's going through probably one of the most difficult personal times of her life. So testament to her, and the fact that she is still competing at the highest level and she hasn't taken the time off. She is very much still in the mix.
Absolutely. And you did mention Jannik Sinner and the case. Obviously, we reported
The
on
case
this
that
last
won't
week.
go away.
It won't go away. There's been updates. It's still in the news.
The case we're always going to be talking about.
What do you mean, Venus Williams in the wild card? No?
It'll be like Jannik Sinner doping weekly going forwards. But
that's
no,
what the comments say, Kim.
Novak Djokovic was back on the tour last week. He was asked about it, and he came out and said that, there's definitely favouritism going on. It's not fair with the treatment of Sinner versus the treatment of the likes of, Halep, Tara Moore, etc. What did you make of his comments, first of all? I mean, do you agree with Djokovic? I think, based on our discussion last week, I think he's definitely got a fair point. But did you, pick up anything interesting on what his take was from this?
Yeah, I think it was interesting to hear that he spoke about the locker room and the kind of the general consensus is of favoritism and it not being kind of a level playing field. And as you said, kind of talking about those lower ranked players not having, the support or the rub of the green that maybe a top ranked player would get. So it's interesting to hear, I think, because we don't have access to that kind of point of view. And it's interesting to hear the majority of players maybe think that from who Djokovic has spoken to, and I guess from his own point of view in the PTPA, it just shows arguably that there is a role there for for some thing or some element to kind of stand up for. I want to say stand up for the little guys, stand up for the people who might not have the resources and teams and money available to them. It might be an opportunity where the PTPA could actually do some good in tennis in terms of leveling out the playing field, because at the moment I think the situation has shown just how big that gap and that disparity is, and we've spoken about that in lots of different terms, like prize money, for example, but certainly as a kind of a support structure maybe for those players lower ranked down could be something that the PTPA maybe could and should explore in the future to kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah, and WADA, basically, there's been more stuff in the news in this week, and WADA, who originally were pushing for a ban on Sinner for 2 years, they've obviously accepted this 3-month deal with the helpful influence of Sinner's lawyers. But WADA's statement, actually, they said that they've announced that Sinner didn't mean to cheat. There's no intention there. It was a sort of contamination. The amount of this substance is absolutely so minute. They've said it's 1 million miles away from doping, yet he has to serve a doping ban, which seems at complete odds. If they sort of cleared him of intentional cheating or doping, why should a player still have to then serve a doping ban? How do you make sense of this as a member of the public? It's so confusing to a lot of people. And I think that's why there's been so many articles about it, because it's like just trying to get your head around all the different authorities. But I mean, yeah, that phrase that they've come out and said 1 million miles from doping, yet he's got to serve a doping ban. How is that understandable?
Also, how is that helpful, I would say, as well? And I think when it comes to these cases, there's so many different aspects of it that can confuse, that it actually is probably a case that the different institutions that Novak Djokovic criticised, and the fact that the ITIA and WADA and the Court of Arbitration for Sport quite often are at odds with each other. And I think that now, because of the fact that there was this situation where they did actually rule something different, they have got a settlement where the ITIA did clear Sinner, I think it is a little bit of a damage control sort of PR move that we're seeing for both the head of the ITIA as well as some key figures at WADA, because 1 million miles away from doping, I'm not being funny, but that's actually not a scientific finding by any means. They do refer to the fact that they did look at some research. They did have scientific advice that basically said that it was almost impossible for it to be a case of intentional doping or microdosing. But I think that's probably to distract from the actual problem here, which is actually the system. By saying that Sinner didn't do this, it's trying to say that he didn't do anything wrong. They were right to settle, but at the same time, it's almost exposing them for the fact that they have still banned him. And this wasn't the case with many of the other examples or some of the examples that Djokovic has mentioned. So I think this was a strange piece and very difficult to make sense of, because then a lot of people are saying then there shouldn't be a ban. as you've said, Kim, I mean, that would be the logical conclusion. If you're about clean sport and someone's done nothing wrong, then why would you ban them? And although some of their rules are changing, it doesn't actually change the fact that under their rules, it should have been longer than what they settled for. And whether the intention was there or not, it doesn't change the length of the ban from what they initially appealed with. So saying you were going to appeal and then saying, you know what, actually, we changed our mind. We actually think
it's a million miles away.
It's a million miles away. It was so far away that we actually appealed it because we thought it was literally doping. Yeah. So that's where I think it doesn't make sense. And when you look at some of the other things, saying it's blind to the calendar, you could never control when this would be. I mean, Joel, what do you make on that? Because, I mean, are we all eye rolling to that?
I mean, it just is too coincidental.
Backdating for Rome.
I would actually go the complete opposite and say it's tailor made to the calendar. The other thing I'd add as well, just on that timing front, like if it was a million miles away, then how was it taken so long to arrive at a decision? But yeah, I just think this is a damage limitation exercise potentially, just to kind of cover WADA's backs, in the sort of ongoing fallout from the case, which I can understand that point of view, but it feels a bit ham-fisted the way they've kind of maybe gone about it with these kind of quotes coming out, because it is going to just confuse and muddy the waters more. But maybe there's an argument to say maybe that's what they're trying to do in terms of trying to just make it just one of these situations where there feels like there's no right answer, there's no bad guy, there's no kind of villain piece or whatever. It's just a mess, and that's actually the best outcome for someone like WADA, who are so heavily involved.
Yeah, and actually Djokovic sums it up pretty well. I think he says it's not a good image for our sport, that's for sure. And I think really what WADA are doing now, saying it's a million miles away from doping when they were the people that appealed it and wanted a ban, and then all of the information that they've put out now, I think it doesn't make anybody look good. And I think it definitely doesn't give the players, as he says in the locker room, much confidence. The fact that someone could get banned for doing something a million miles away from doping. And we're not going to go into whether the different aspects of what we think when it comes to that. But ultimately, the issues that we're talking about should be about the institutions with this, and what has gone wrong, and the favouritism side of things. But one final thing I'll say on this is that WADA do have a checkered history. And when it comes to a comment that we see regularly, we get this a lot around the 23 Chinese swimmers, the fact that they did return positive tests. The Chinese doping authorities said there was no problem. You might remember this. It was quite a famous story at the time. And then WADA didn't appeal it. And then kind of recently an internal memo has leaked basically saying that they thought they did a good job to sway public opinion in their favour, having not appealed it. So there is no rhyme or reason, I don't think, in the way that they are approaching this that makes them look good, because, when people do think someone could be intentionally doping, they don't appeal it. And then when, for example, they think they're not intentionally doping, they do appeal it, and then they end up banning somebody. So this is, again, not saying that we're necessarily on the side of anyone in particular, but what we are on the side on is that this needs to clean up its act when it comes to how these cases are handled, because they're probably in a situation now when no matter what happens, or what the case is, people will not trust the institutions or the verdicts that are being given, and public opinion will really be allowed to kind of run wild. So
tennis is the loser. Tennis is ultimately the loser. And, for fans like us, it just sort of damages the brand of tennis and makes a little bit more of a mockery kind of it, that, for our friends and, people we know kind of, talk about with me.
It's the laughing stock, isn't it? The world number one can't play, but he didn't dope. And what's happening now? And, it is all chaotic. You're like, well, the world number one doped on the, not doped, sorry, was banned, has a anti-doping ban. And then Iga Swiatek, and you're thinking, wait, what's going on here? It's conspiracy theories driving wild. But we have much more fun things to look forward to, don't we, Kim?
We do. We've got the ATP 500 event in Doha to look forward to. Two ATP 500s this coming week. So we've also got Acapulco as well.
Kim, you've fallen already. I get it. Dubai and Doha. We've had the one in Doha, which Rublev won. Dubai is now up and running. The Dubai 500.
But he can win that one too, maybe.
Dubai? Did I say Doha?
Maybe I'm wrong. I thought you said Doha.
I
think
thought I
it's
said Dubai, but it's
Okay.
fine. It is Dubai.
It's all the same. It's
Um,
fine. It's
I mean,
in
you
the
could go
Middle
to
East.
the 250 in Chile if you'd prefer. And we've got a WTA out in Mexico, in Merida as well. So, and a 250 in Austin as well. So there's plenty to look forward to. So you don't even have to, read about doping or read about nasty coaches. You can just watch the actual tennis.
Berrettini Monfils. You could watch that instead. That would be your tonic.
Monfils. That is, that's a tasty.
I was a bit sad
round,
because I
isn't it?
saw Dan Evans, Karen Khachanov earlier. Dan Evans lost to Khachanov. Now, that was their first match since they had that epic match at the Australian Open. And Evans, I think his head-to-head was unblemished. It was 4-0, but sadly he was defeated in straight sets. So Khachanov is already through.
Yes, absolutely. Draper's dropped out of Dubai to manage his body after his exploits last week in Doha. So the top seed is Medvedev, Alex de Minaur, second seed. Rublev is the third seed. Any thoughts? Do you think Rublev's going to do a double, perhaps?
Oh, I'd like to see
He's
Tsitsipas make a bit of a run.
Oh.
I feel like I'm on a bit of a point with him where, he lost obviously to Medvedev. He was on one leg, having sort of torn his groin in two. So
That was a weird handshake.
Nasty.
Very, very strange. So I'd like to see him, put together a better result. I think de Minaur, it'd be nice to see if he could kind of actually get one of these sort of titles at this level, maybe cause an upset. I think that would be nice as well. But I mean, it's a lot of good tennis, a lot of good draws, and a lot of players who will now be moving to the hard court, like Zverev, to see if he can maybe do a bit better than he did in the Golden Swing over in Mexico.
He's still in South America, but yeah, on the hards, maybe it will bring him some good fortune. But Casper Ruud's playing some good tennis at the moment.
He is, yeah. Could be one to watch.
Yeah, one to
Former
watch.
finalist at this event, I believe, last year. And then the Golden Swing, if you're still watching it, I think you were still watching these players maybe 3 weeks ago in Argentina. But we might get a different result, might we, Kim?
Yeah, we might get a different result. Plenty to play for. Cerundolo top seed, Francisco Cerundolo, that is, in Chile. So will we have a classic Golden Swinger win that one? Tabilo, Jarry, Baez, they're all there. So
the big three of the Golden Swing.
The big three of the Golden
Swing. Emma Navarro, who is the fourth highest ranked American female player at the moment, is the top seed out in Merida. And we've got the likes of Badosa, Haddad Maya, Kalinskaya, and
Donovekic.
Sloane
Donovekic.
Stevens, surely
Yeah,
you should be
so
saying. Sloane is back on the court.
Sramkova,
Sloane Stevens didn't turn down that wild card, did she, Chris?
She didn't. Confirmation just in. She did get offered it and she did accept it immediately. But also, Fran Jones qualified. I saw that was quite nice. So she's making some moves. She's up to a career high. She's pushing for that top 100. So that would be a great story for her. And it's a good draw. She's going to have chances against, I think she plays Maya Sharif, who's not famously good on a hard court. So you never know.
Let's see. And in Austin, we've got JPEG as the top seed and Diana Schneider, second seed. So, quite a few Americans in this one, as you'd expect. Kessler,
And Petra
McNally,
Kvitova.
Stearns.
She's back.
Petra Kvitova is
returning.
back. And she's playing Jodie Burrage. First round.
Big
So
hitting first round.
Burrage could be on to the win there with Kvitova's first match back. I think that's
could be good. No
quite a
Madison
decent draw.
Keys here because Jessica Pegula got that top spot. So hopefully Madison will be watching from home, but very, very sad not to see her there.
Yeah, absolutely. So lots to watch on the tour this coming week with 5 tournaments to play with. And let's see what else the news brings, because there's been a lot in the news, with all the, controversies, shall we say. So let's see.
It's been a
where we'll be this time
controversial
next
episode.
week.
It's been a controversial catch up. We've had a lot of controversies to talk about, but it's been the nature, I think, of the tour at the moment. There's so many different
off court, isn't it?
It's a lot more off court,
scandal.
and it's a lot of debate. But we're going to wrap up our latest tour catch up there at Tennis Weekly HQ. We hope you've enjoyed the ride as always with us. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action on the ATP and WTA tours. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all your favorite podcasting platforms out there.
And if you love what you're hearing, then be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube.
And you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. And the handle for all of those is Tennis Weekly Pod. If you'd like to see that Venus Williams clip and all of the hype that got, do check out some of the news articles as well, because you might see a familiar name there. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, you can also submit to our mailbag. And that can be through comments, or that could be from emailing us at tennisweeklypod@gmail.com. Or you can also do that via our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we'll be back next Monday for another tour catch up. But until then, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Tennis Weekly.